That looks a lot like the Outer Limits thing. The question is like, if consciousness is rendering something, and something from somewhere else, something that you normally can't access, is exchanging information with you in some sort of a strange way, and it's doing it while you're in a semi-conscious state, right? Would it try to represent itself as something that's familiar? I mean, maybe it's just like our primitive visual ability, our primitive, all of our senses, which are very crude and primate driven. They're basically like, your eyes are in the front of your head because you're a predator, and you're basically like a tribal territorial ape that has, you know, really kind of, it's grown out of its genetics. Like you're in some new state, so you're communicating with something that is beyond your comprehension. And so it's like, instead of showing myself as a tesseract, instead of showing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, instead of showing myself as geometric patterns that are constantly morphing and made out of light, I don't think this monkey's going to be able to handle this. These silly humans, I'm going to have to like show myself as something that was a television character. And that's why when Betty's drawing that, maybe she doesn't even realize that like it looks a lot like what she saw on TV.
Totally. And I think,
Clarify something maybe?
Yeah,
I just feel like I misunderstood it. Their event happened in 1961. That episode aired in 1964, but it was 12 days before they had their hypnotic regression.
Got it.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
So their hypnotic regression was that long afterwards?
Yes, 3 years, 2.5.
Huh. That's interesting. So when did they start describing an experience? Was it pre-hypnotic? What prompted them to have the hypnotic regression?
I believe she had she came home and she had I think some blood on her, and she was like they had a lot of missing time. They had like 5 hours of missing time. They were on a road trip.
Right.
And it was back to their place, I think in Vermont.
That changes things a little bit, but also there's the problem there is that human memory sucks.
It does.
Memory sucks. And if you have a memory of a very traumatic experience that's 3 years ago, and then also you just watched Outer Limits, then things get squirrely. Because like, if you're communicating with something and it's literally telepathically engaging with you and it can read your mind and it's telling you to calm down, it's got you on its spaceship, like how much of that do you, especially whatever happened to you, it somehow or another rendered your memory out, like you can't really remember it, so you're hypnotically accessing this memory, and then you also have this like recent experience of watching a television.
Totally. But yeah, you're paralyzed, there's often missing time, and so at that point you have to say these beings have total control over your entire reality, and so it's hard to say exactly what happened.
According to the wiki I got, that this happened in November of 61. For 10 days, or 10 days after she started having dreams, or 10 days after the alleged encounter, she began having dreams. And then a year later, at church, they ran into a captain of the Air Force. And then some hypnosis discussions started. But then 2 years later, church is when those sessions happened. So there's not a lot of, the timeline, at least according to the wiki, is not really kept well here.
Right.
So that's a long period of time.
Listen to this. Barney described the beings as generally similar to Betty's hypnotic recollection. He said the being stared into his eyes with a terrifying, mesmerizing effect. Under hypnosis, Barney said, "Oh, those eyes, they're in my brain. They're there in my brain." From his first hypnotic session, I was told to close my eyes because I saw 2 eyes coming close to mine, and I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes. All I see are these eyes. I'm not even afraid that they're not connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes. When Betty reported a conversation with the leader in English, Barney said that he had heard them speaking in a mumbling language he did not understand. Betty also mentioned this detail. The few times they communicated with him, Barney said it seemed to be thought transference. At the time, he was unfamiliar with the word telepathy. That's interesting. Like, he didn't know what the word telepathy was, and the concept of speaking through the mind wasn't even in pop culture yet.
Totally. And it's hard to debunk that something paranormal happened. You know, like they seem like completely of sound mind, and there's this missing time, and then you have all these high up head honchos, you know, at Air Force. I believe this guy Charles Douglas Jackson, who was this head honcho as well, and kind of the Pentagon, came and visited them. So I think it's clear that something happened, and then what happened, it's just hard to say. It's
Right.
really hard to say.
Like, why is the Air Force talking to them? That's the real question.
Right. Well, 'cause I think they had an interest. You know, Project Blue Book was running at the time, and it's clear now, if you do deeper research, that they knew more than they let on. Jalen Hynek, you know, later kind of apologized and admitted he played a part in the cover-up. And so they were probably doing real research with abductees while they were kind of downplaying, you know, and rationalizing everything to the public.
So Jamie just pulled something up. It says on November 23rd, 1962, the Hills attended a meeting at the parsonage of their church where Captain Ben H. Sweat of the United States Air Force was a guest speaker. Having had an interest in hypnosis, the Hills approached Sweat privately and related their strange encounter. Sweat was particularly interested in the missing time of the Hills' accounts. The Hills asked if he would hypnotize them to recover their memories, but Sweat declined and cautioned them against going to an amateur hypnotist such as
I
himself.
wonder what the meeting was about that he was, you know, talking at.
Right.
That they just went to like
A meeting?
by
Right.
hypnosis, maybe, like just in general.
Yeah, but he's like a self-proclaimed amateur hypnotist. Why would an amateur hypnotist have a meeting at a church about hypnotism? And especially like in 1962, I'd imagine that a lot of people running churches were super skeptical about even that concept, and they might even thought it was like blasphemy or sorcery or something you're not
Work of
supposed
the
to.
devil.
Yeah, something you're not supposed to be fucking with. Hey, what did this guy do? He's got a website.
Testimony from him. I read some of my poetry to a meeting at the rectory of the Unitarian Church in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I wasn't a member of the church, didn't know anyone there.
Why does he have a donation link on his website?
This is for the Wayback Machine.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He was studying hypnosis, and they wanted to hear about it.
Does seem a little awfully convenient.
Kind of odd that someone was studying hypnosis.
They had him to read his poetry, and it had nothing to do with the church at all.
The craziest thing about this story is Betty told this famous UFO researcher from Sweden, this guy Klaus Von, who actually has the largest UFO archive in the world in Sweden. She said that she saw a UFO crash later, and she buried a little piece of it in her house in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And so there might be a little piece of a UFO in her old house. And if you live there, go dig in your backyard and see.
Well, it's probably not there until
It's
you
probably
experience it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Your consciousness
This is-
renders it.
That's right.
This
Yes.
is kind of strange. Those lines right there. Because this is the timeline here is weird. Because he did this in '62, and then he's saying he also came back in '63, and that's when the UFO stuff started.
So they started telling me about something that happened to them as they were driving home from Canada the night of 19 to 20 September 1961. A light in the sky seemed to follow them and then circled them, and being stopped on the road, and how they later realized that they had a 3-hour gap in their memories. As they told their story, Barney's face kept twitching spasmodically on one side. I didn't like the looks of that. Whoa. The missing time is also a weird one, because that also hadn't been something that was in the zeitgeist. Was that in the Outer Limits? Probably not.
No.
But yet that has become a part of the experience that all these abductees discuss.
Absolutely.
They discuss, like, all of a sudden they're back in their car and they're sitting on the side of the road and they're like, okay, what the fuck just happened?
I was just telling Jamie before we were rolling. So, 1977, Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. There are two missile security officers, two sergeants, a guy named Mario Woods and Michael Johnson. And Mario sees this UFO sort of, circling the base, and he flashes the little, perimeter floodlights at this UFO. And he thinks nothing of it, goes back, he and Michael are hanging out. I think 4 or 5 hours go by, and there's a big alert, and it's an inner zone and outer zone alert. So basically, the security perimeter to a hydrogen bomb, a live thermonuclear weapon, has been breached. And yeah, and they get in their car and they go check it out, because there's always 2-man rapid response teams. They go check it out. There is what he describes as a blazing red orb the size of a Walmart. So a massive, that's the way he described it. It's a huge, storefront size, city block size UFO. And then he says a little, like a black, kind of almost like a drone or emissary orb that's the size of a golf cart comes out. 4 beings hover towards them. They black out. They black in 5.5 hours later, 8 miles away in Newell. Next to a dam. I think it's closer to Newell. And it's 8 miles off the base. And they immediately get questioned by Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And the Air Force Office of Special Investigations agent who's involved admits he was there for this debrief and admits that this happened. His name's Rick Doty. And so they were separated after that, Michael and Mario. I just reintroduced them for the first time. I found Michael. So Mario had been going on all these podcasts since the 90s, being like, where's Mike? He has eidetic, picture-perfect photographic memory. You'd love him. He's the coolest guy, and he remembers everything to a T that happened to him, including his debrief. He remembers the names of the people there.
Wow.
It's so obvious something happened to him. And
did he always have that memory? That ability?
He always had that ability. He's clearly just very talented when it comes to memory. And he'd been looking for Michael forever. He asked the FBI to find him. He asked the All Domain Anomalies Resolution Office, which is the official Pentagon office, around UFOs, to find him. He hired, private investigators. And this dude DM'd me on Instagram, shout out, fan of the show, Jason Miller. And then we just got a recruiter to find Michael Johnson, because that was the one missing piece of the story. And they reconnected, and it was the most emotional, because they hadn't seen each other. They saw each other once, I think 2 weeks after the abduction, to trade notes and draw pictures of what happened to them, the beings on the ship, and